hands, you say? The thing that intrigues me is that a lot of people like feet, or at least are curious about them. Hands, on the other hand, not so much. But why? Probably because they don't have that same sense of mystery and tabooness that drives curiosity, since they're always just out there in the open, never hidden, not leaving much room for your imagination to wander off into uncharted territory. In recent gacha games, there are so many examples of characters for the feet people, but pretty much none to cater to the hand people, as far as I know. But hands are important too. They have a complex beauty of their own. They're used in a lot of different actions. They convey different emotions, and any good animator will always have them active. Now it all starts with a beautiful and functional mesh, which brings us to today's video. They are the final part of this series where we're breaking down professional 3D models part by part, reverse engineering and recreating them in an easy way for our own characters. So after this, you'll be able to create a full studio-inspired character with just these free videos in this playlist. Now let me break down how you can do a good job with your hands. As always, we will start with a reference. There are a ton of different games offering their models for free, so just pick whichever ones you like. Why do we always do an analysis before we even start modeling? Because a nice 5-minute quickie in Blender of seeing the basic details can save you hours in the long run and eliminate common beginner mistakes before you even start. For example, knowing that the fingers are not placed straight along the base, but instead they follow this gentle curve, and seeing the contours, the thickness created by the palm and the base of the thumb is very important, because without this, the hand will look flat. Oh, this thing's as flat as a pancake. And apart from that, it's just a matter of measuring everything to download all the proportions and contours into your brain. Now let's dive into it on the mesh level. Joints. Joint bends flare out on the bending side. And you will see this everywhere, not just in fingers, and one main functional reason for this is that it gives space for the bottom edges to not clip into itself when it's curled inwards. This also keeps things very efficient, as opposed to, doing a trillion loop cuts. It's just one loop on each side, very clean. Knuckles. A lot of people assume, even I assumed, that these would have their own complicated, dedicated topology. Most of the time, these studios just keep it simple. Wuthering Waves doesn't even detail them on the mesh level. It's not a big enough detail that it would warrant that, except for the knuckles on the base itself. Just enough so that you could raise 1 or 2 vertices, and it'll give you that subtle depth. If you absolutely need all the knuckles fleshed out, then take a look at Girls Frontline 2. They managed to do it, and they do it in a simple way. Literally after they model the finger, what you can do is just cut into it. Boom, boom. And then you would just move these into place, select them and raise them very slightly, and then you'd have your knuckle. You might have heard me mention the magic number. This is simply the number of edges around the finger. The magic number here is 12. A shape with size half of 12 is a hexagon, so I know I'll be working with a simple hexagon to create the base of the finger, because when it's subdivided, it will give me that original magic number. And of course, this will dictate more than just the finger. It'll determine the loop that it attaches to the base of the hand as well, and it will also determine how we do the nail topology later. Anime hands are quite stylized. You'll find that fingers are longer, skinnier, and straight, especially for female characters to make them look graceful and delicate. Male hands are stubbier and convey more strength, usually leaning towards the more realistic side as they have more muscle and bone detail. Also, fingers can have imperfections, which came to the surprise of many viewers realizing their fingers are crooked after seeing that Chisa's middle finger is ever so slightly bent. Here's my chicken scratch analysis of hands, which I will be using as my reference, and you can also screenshot it if you want to use it along with me as well. Now let's break down my plan of how we're gonna do this. Number 1, we'll start with a hand base born out of a humble hexagon, where I'll show you exactly how to make this simple structure where, when it's subdivided, kind of looks like a fingerless glove, but it has these nice holes that the fingers will attach to super easily, as well as webbing support for when the hand stretches outward. Now throughout the entire process, we'll be sculpt tweaking the hand. It makes more sense to tweak some things at certain stages, and I'll try to let you know why something is being tweaked at a certain time. Next, we'll make a finger, once again using our trusty hexagon, which when subdivided gives us just the right amount of topology to finesse a nail onto the end. Then duplicating and resizing them, they have the exact matching number of vertices to be bridged onto our finger base. Once everything is joined, the mesh will be complete and all that's left will be perfecting it through the final sculpt tweaks and a few other optional things. So just some prerequisites: grab yourself a reference of course, enable the add-ons loop tools and auto mirror, which should be already in Blender, you just need to check them off, and let's begin. Let's add a circle to the scene, set vertices to 6, rotation of X and Y to 90. And we get this hexagon just like we did with our foot tutorial. And we can duplicate this because we will be using it for the fingers later. So just hide it off on the side. And here's what we'll do. Take each end and move them to each side. Then do a loop cut. And here on the menu, let's change the number of cuts to 16. That might seem like a lot, but you know, just follow along. Do it for the bottom as well. 16 as well. Now you're gonna take the middle 4 like this. I have it on the blue line so I know it's like right in the middle. And I'm gonna create a face there. And from this end, this corner, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3. And then I'm gonna select these 4 and create a face here. Same thing for the other side, 1, 2, 3, and create a face starting from there. Then I'm gonna shift select all of these extra ones. Delete, dissolve vertices. Now I'm gonna loop cut all of these in the middle one time. Then I'm gonna select everything except these inner vertices. So I do Control Select to deselect them. And I'll extrude this backwards, just about like where the knuckles would end. I'll switch to Edge Select mode and merge these edges. And do the same for the bottom as well. M, A to quickly merge at center. So what we've created is the base of the hand where it connects with the fingers. And we have some extra like webbing support, which will be useful for when the fingers flay out and makes it much easier to join the fingers to the base later. Now real quick, I always upload whatever I make in these tutorials at multiple steps on my Patreon in case you get stuck, need something to compare to, or just want to grab the finished file. So you can grab that along with a bunch of other files on my Patreon, which is linked in the description, for only $5 at the blacksmith tier. Going back to vertex mode and toggling on my X-ray, I'm gonna select all of these in the back and extrude them along the y-axis to create the rest of my palm. So about that long, and I'm gonna scale this along the z-axis. The back of the palm is fatter, and I'll do the same for this as well. Let's turn on wireframe. And what we can do now is loop cut this area. Let's do 2 of them, and let's create the base for the thumb. So what I will do is delete this vertex right here. Select this loop. Extrude it. Scale it down. Select these and move that a little outwards. Let me see. Okay, let's shrink this a little more. Because overall it will taper from the end of the wrist down into fingers. It will get smaller at the end. At this point, let's add our subdivision surface modifier. Let's also check for face orientation. Okay, that one in the middle for some reason. Okay, and let's just use recalculate outside. And let's just select this loop, extrude it. That'll be our wrist. Scale it down like that. Let's go to sculpt mode. G for my grab brush, and let's make our first sculpts. I'm gonna move my palm up a little like this middle area, give it some, give it some volume. Do the same for the bottom, just very slightly for now. We'll do it more once we've actually applied subdiv so that we can have more vertices to work with. Let's do this side as well. The resting pose will be slightly outstretched. So move it a little towards this way. Take this little area and move it This side, do it a little as well. Maybe you can try this curve as well, where on the pinky side, it's a little more kind of like that. So move this area back. Oops, that's too big of a radius. Okay, that's good for now. We can tweak it more later. Now I'll apply the modifier. You can see this is what we end up with. And we've got that nice area in between. What I like to do is I just select these three where the triangle, well, not the triangle, like this diamond quad is made. I'll just merge it. And align it with the rest of the loop. We don't need that. Do the same for the bottom as well. As you can see, we got these nice 12 edge loops, the exact number needed for our fingers. So let's take that hexagon that we saved from earlier and let's scale it down and move it in front of one of our finger joints, just like so. I have a small gap in between. Now extrude it and scale it down at the end. Then I'll do a double loop cut and move it slightly to the right. And for the third, I will loop cut that once. Then I'll toggle X-ray on and I'll move these points so that it has that curve at the end of the finger. And there you go, it's already starting to look like a finger. At this point, let's go to our modifiers and add a subdivision. I'll just go ahead, shade it smooth. And now we'll apply that modifier, leaving us with this. I'm gonna auto mirror this on the Y positive so it splits it right in the middle, making it easier to edit. You might have a different orientation depending on your axes. Around the nail area, I'll do one more loop cut and move these 2 points so that we have that straight nail at the top. Then I'm gonna take my knife tool and do some cuts for the nail, so follow along. Starting from that corner, we will go to the middle and then go down until here, then terminate it on the outer corner like that. Press enter, and go back here and cut into the side, terminating it into the mirror. And just so you can see which one is exactly the nail, I will mark that with this green over here. And we'll do a slight indentation for the nail to be sitting down into the bed, like so. And we will slightly curve the shape of the nail, like this. Next, we're going to separate the tip of the nail from the finger itself. In edit mode, press 2 to go to edge select mode and select this edge and press V. Then you can move it down, tweak it so that it rests a little under the nail itself. Select these 3 points and create a triangle face and then fill in that other face like that. Then select these 2 points under the nail and push them in. And now the nail is protruding out of the finger and is slightly separated. Next, I'll create the joint mechanisms by loop cutting and rotating, creating that flaring taper for the 2 joints. So I'm gonna do it for this joint as well, at about that angle, and adjust slightly so that it's straight. Then let's sculpt tweak the subtle contours of the finger and the knuckles. Best to do this now before we duplicate them. There's actually a slightly more flare towards the bottom when I was looking at the reference, so I'm trying to mimic that. Let's curve the finger from the top a little. So quick contour check before we duplicate. Yep, tapers towards the end. We got the joint mechanisms and we pushed in from the top to create that curve from the top as well. So let's duplicate that 4 times. For the thumb, we'll only keep up to the first joint. And the pinky will be a lot smaller, so I'll dissolve that 1 loop there before shrinking it down even more. Resize the fingers until you're satisfied. Fun fact, the index finger is longer than the ring finger, usually in females. And here I move each finger in front of its respective hole, and with proportional editing on, I shrink the one for the pinky, as well as the ring finger just so it matches the finger a little more, and move it even a little to the right, adjusting each hole to match more closely to the position and size of each finger. For the thumb, I set its origin to its center so that I can easily scale it and rotate it where it needs to be, and do some very small tweaks from the side, rotating a little downwards to get a natural resting pose. It also seems like they have to be rotated a bit outwards to match the palm, so let's try to do that now and try to match it up with the angle of the edges on the palm. Alright, these 4 fingers should be good, so I'm going to select them as well as the palm base and do Ctrl J in object mode to join them all into one object. Now it's time to bridge the fingers. So in edit mode, let's alt select the palm and the finger loops and do the function bridge edge loops. If the transition doesn't look too smooth, you can adjust the angle, but if it's close enough, we can just dissolve it and then re-add it with a loop cut. It does feel slightly off. We can rotate it a little more, select these parts, and rotate it until it's in harmony with the rest of the mesh. We can worry about artistic imperfections later down the road. Repeat this for the rest of the fingers, bridging, dissolving, and re-looping. And rotating if the edges need alignment. Let's do some curving on the webbing by selecting 5 vertices and using Loop Tool's Relax, making that part curved instead of boxy looking. Now I'm going to go to the end of each finger, select that middle vertex, and do Ctrl Numpad plus until it selects the entire finger up to the base. Then I'll quickly swap over to Sculpt mode and use the function Face Set from Edit Mode Selection. It will give it a different color in Sculpt mode, and I will do this for each finger. This is important for sculpting individual fingers later. Now it's time to work on that thumb, so I scale it up slightly, rotate it onto its side slightly less than 90 degrees. Then also do a Z rotation until it's in this natural outstretched position, and we'll do one more rotation from the side, rotating it on the x-axis into its natural resting position. The base loop for the thumb does have more vertices than the end of our thumb, so we have to merge 4 edges. To keep it simple, I'll just merge near the 4 corners. So again, I merge a total of 4 edges so that it matches my thumb loop. I'll extrude the thumb loop out once, join the base with the thumb, and then bridge the loop. That was quite a big bridge between the thumb and the base, so we can loop cut it 2 or 3 times. And after that loop cut is made, your mesh is 99% done. All that's really left mesh-wise is the wrist. But after that, it's literally all sculpt tweaks. So let's start tweaking that transition from the base to the thumb, here from the side, from the top as well. And don't forget the base of the thumb. That also comes down quite a bit. So here you'll be relying on your reference, looking at more hand anatomy, and simply stylizing your hand to the extent that you want to. Just a little more back here on the base of the thumb. And with that, I'm going to merge down some edges before I get to the wrist because we don't need that many edges on the wrist. Then I'll extrude out of this loop. Scale to 0 on the dimension to flatten it out. Add a couple of loop cuts. And sculpt tweak again for that wrist transition. Now here's an important thing. Some parts can look good in isolation, but once everything comes together, you'll realize you'll need to make some more tweaks because you'll have to worry about everything in proportion with each other. So you'll notice that even as you create the wrist and attach the thumb and whatnot, and even once you attach it to your own character, you might find that there are some more tweaks that need to be made. And that's the fun part that you have to do yourself because obviously we can't cover every single of the thousands or millions of tweaks that need to be done. Now for some optional knuckle support, I'm just going to go from the edges of the fingers and cut a squarish shape onto the top of the palm for each of the knuckles. Parallel to the middle 3 edges of each finger. And then to solve the n-gons this creates, simply terminate them into the corners like this. Oh, let's not forget the one for the index finger. I don't know why I did this last, but whatever. And just 2 more cuts. So one here, terminate into the corner, and on the other side as well. Now we can subtly tweak the points that we've just created. So move those up slightly. Selecting a couple from each of the knuckle areas, raising them very subtly on the z-axis. And now let's compare it to the reference that we had, which is Fleur-de-Lis's hand. There are differences, but the silhouette is similar enough. You can also add that little bone at the end of the wrist if you want. Maybe I'll do that when I join it. Now, a lot of magic is also in the texturing, which we'll cover in the next video, but for now we can create the seams. So I'll just Alt left click through the middle of the fingers like this and continue it through the thumb as well. Now you might run into this where you're trying to mark the seam all the way around. So you start on this side, marking through the middle, and it goes around all through the fingers. But when you hit this part, you have a little bit of a problem because it doesn't go all the way around and go into your thumbs, into the middle of your thumbs. If you continue it, it goes around here, which is still fine. You can still do this. You can still mark this and it would be acceptable. But what I like to do, I'll just cut like this. And this will be able to reroute it so that when you mark the seam, it goes all the way around and goes through the middle of the thumb as well. And then here, maybe this would look better if we just did this, then dissolve these two edges. But yeah, this is another thing that I'll probably have to think of a better way to do. Right now, it's kind of on the fly. But that's what I'm doing for now. And then I'll just move on to the fingernails, selecting all of the edges around them. Should be pretty easy because we've got them marked. And then we do the under of them as well. Select these edges right under the nails and mark them as well. You should also mark the opening of the hand like this, where it connects to the arm. And don't worry, once we get to the full texturing video, I'll explain all of the seams on the body. But yeah, that's what we got for now. I'm gonna Frankenstein it onto my character. And knowing me, I'll probably do a million more tweaks after it's joined. I gotta do some more merge downs here towards the wrist so that the wrist loop matches the arm loop. Okay, delete the old hand, move the new one in its place, join them, bridge edge loops. There are some weird artifacts because they are facing the wrong way, so recalculate outside. And just smooth out the transition with dissolving, moving it into place, and then doing some tweaks. See, like here already, I know I want to do a lot more tweaks because now I know how it interacts with the outline. And I got to worry about that as well, and how it matches up with the rest of the vibe of the entire character. Here's a mini demo of that flared joint compared to just straight loops. As you can see, it avoids that little pinching and clipping that goes on, and kind of mimics the joint folds when your finger folds. Here I'm doing some final tweaks on my hands. By taking face sets on this tab, you can edit each finger individually. Otherwise, your grab brush is gonna spill over to the finger beside the one that you're making changes to. This here is the pose brush and you can move the entire finger's rotation. Here I'm trying to find that slightly crooked 1 degree rotation that I can use on this hand. Fingers are not naturally 100% straight all the time, but we don't have to go too crazy, just apply it to one finger. And I think that'll do it. Oh, boob jump scare. And this is our final mesh results. Of course, it's not final until we do our texture. Anyways, thank you for watching. You start to finish watchers are my goats. One more thing, I am sorry that this video took so long to get out. The editing just sometimes takes so long after the initial recording, and life kind of gets in the way sometimes. But guys, thanks to all of your views and support, I do have some good news that I will share with you soon. Just not today, maybe in the next video, because I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'll see you in the next one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have yourselves a good night.